The last thing he said to her was, "I'm not ready to be a father." He didn't shout it. He didn't slam the door. He said it calmly, like it was a business decision. And then he walked away. 6 years later, fate walked back in. But it didn't knock. Alexander Romano stood at the head of the long mahogany conference table, adjusting his cufflinks as the city stretched behind the glass walls of his penthouse office. White, 37, tall, dark hair brushed back with precision, jaws sharp enough to cut through negotiation. A man who had built an empire from calculated risks. A man who never revisited old mistakes, especially not personal ones. "Sir, there's someone downstairs asking for you," his assistant said through the intercom. "Appointment?" he asked without looking up. "No." Then no. A pause. "She says you'll want to see her." He exhaled, mildly irritated. "And why is that?" "She didn't say. But she's not alone." He almost dismissed it again, until something in the assistant's tone shifted. Uncertain. "Careful. Send her up," he said finally. The elevator doors opened 3 minutes later, and the air in the room changed instantly. Sophia Bennett stepped inside first. White, 32, long auburn hair tied loosely at the back, minimal makeup, dressed simply, not intimidated, not angry, just steady. He hadn't seen her in 6 years. And yet, he recognized the exact way her chin lifted when she was bracing herself. "Sophia," he said coolly. "Alexander." No warmth. No bitterness. Just history. Then the elevator doors slid closed completely, and the second figure stepped forward. A small boy. 5, maybe 6. Dark hair. Straight posture. Big brown eyes that scanned the room carefully. Serious. Observant. Alexander's breath didn't stop. He didn't visibly react. But something inside him recalibrated instantly. Because the boy's eyes were identical to his. "This isn't appropriate," Alexander said quietly. "It's necessary," Sophia replied. The boy stood beside her, clutching the strap of a small backpack, unaware of the storm forming between the adults. "What is this?" Alexander asked. "You said you weren't ready," Sophia answered calmly. He felt irritation spike. "I told you we weren't stable. You told me you weren't ready to be a father." The precision of her correction hit harder than accusation. Alexander's gaze drifted back to the boy. The shape of his jaw, the way he stood slightly angled, the guarded expression. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't imagination. "How old is he?" Alexander asked carefully. 5. His mind calculated automatically. 6 years ago. The night before she told him. The argument. The silence. The way he convinced himself leaving was practical. Responsible. "He deserves to know you," Sophia said quietly. "Does he?" Alexander replied. "Or do you?" Her eyes flashed briefly. "You don't get to reduce this to ego." The boy finally looked directly at him. Not afraid. Just curious. "Mom," he said softly, "is this him?" The word him hung heavily in the room. Alexander felt something he hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty. "Yes," Sophia said. The boy studied him carefully. "You look like me," he observed simply. The honesty hit harder than confrontation ever could. Alexander crouched slowly to the boy's eye level. His movements measured. Controlled. "What's your name?" he asked. "Luca." The name struck him like a delayed impact. His grandfather's name. Sophia hadn't chosen randomly. "Do you know who I am?" Alexander asked. Luca nodded once. "Mom said you weren't ready." The words were neutral. Not angry. Not sad. Just factual. Sophia closed her eyes briefly. Alexander stood slowly. "You told him that?" he asked. "I told him the truth. You kept him from me. You walked away. You could have called. You could have stayed." The tension tightened like a wire between them. "I wasn't prepared to bring a child into instability," Alexander said firmly. "You weren't prepared to sacrifice convenience," Sophia replied. "I was building something. And I was building him." Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Alexander walked toward the window. The city stretched endlessly below. He had spent 6 years constructing dominance. Security. Wealth. Power. All carefully designed. All controlled. And now, a 5-year-old with his eyes stood in his office. "What do you want?" he asked finally. Sophia's answer came without hesitation. "I want him to know where he comes from. And if I say no, you won't." The certainty in her voice unsettled him. "Why now?" he asked. Because he asked. Alexander turned slowly. Lucas stood quietly, watching both of them like he was absorbing everything. "What did he ask?" Alexander said. Sophia swallowed. He asked why he doesn't have a father at school events. The air shifted. Not dramatic. Just real. I don't need money, Sophia continued. I don't need your name on papers. I don't need charity. Then what? She met his eyes. I need you to decide if you're still not ready. The question stripped away ego. Control. Defense. Alexander looked at Luca again. At the quiet intelligence in his gaze. At the way he wasn't demanding. Wasn't begging. Just existing. 6 years ago, Alexander walked away because he believed distance was cleaner than uncertainty. Because father had felt like chaos. Because vulnerability was risk. Now the risk stood in front of him. 5 feet tall. With his eyes. Luca stepped closer unexpectedly. Are you mad? He asked Alexander. The innocence in the question fractured something inside him. No, Alexander said quietly. Then why do you look like that? Alexander exhaled slowly. Like what? Like you're thinking too hard. Sophia almost laughed despite herself. That was Luca. Direct. Observant. Alexander felt something unfamiliar rise in his chest. Not fear. Not pride. Something heavier. Responsibility. I don't know how to do this, he admitted quietly. Sophia's expression softened slightly. You start by not walking away again. The words weren't cruel. They were factual. Alexander crouched again, eye level with Luca. Do you want me here? He asked carefully. Luca considered the question seriously, then nodded once. Yes. And for the first time in 6 years. Alexander Romano didn't feel powerful. He felt necessary. But necessity came with cost. With change. With decisions he had once avoided. Because if he said yes now, he wouldn't just be acknowledging a child. He would be rewriting the version of himself that once walked away. And the hardest part wasn't admitting he had a son. It was admitting he had been wrong. Alexander Romano had built his life on control, on decisions made early, on risks calculated before they could spiral. But nothing in his empire prepared him for the small boy standing in front of him, waiting, not demanding, not accusing, waiting. Sophia watched Alexander carefully. She knew that look in his eyes. It wasn't rejection. It was recalculation. He was trying to figure out how father had fit into a life built on dominance. And that was the problem. It didn't fit. It transformed. I won't force this, Sophia said quietly. Alexander stood slowly. You already have, he replied. But there was no venom in it. Only truth. She nodded once. Yes. Luca looked between them. Are you coming to my soccer game? He asked. The simplicity of the question cut deeper than anything else that had been said. Sophia hadn't planned that. She saw it in Alexander's eyes. That flicker of something close to panic. He had negotiated billion-dollar mergers, handled rival threats, silenced rooms full of men twice his age, but a child asking for presents. That was different. When is it? Alexander asked carefully. Saturday, Lucas said. I play defense. Of course he did. Alexander almost smiled. Defense. Guarding. Protecting. It felt familiar. I'll be there, Alexander said. Sophia's breath caught slightly. You don't have to say that just because he's here. I'm not, he replied. Then he looked at Luca. Where? Luca grinned and pulled a folded flyer from his backpack. Prepared. Hopeful. Alexander took the paper carefully. His hands, steady in every crisis, felt different holding it. Fragile. You're serious? Sophia asked quietly. Yes. And after that, he said, eyes still on the paper, we figure out what this looks like. She studied him carefully. 6 years ago, he would have shut this down, would have offered money, an arrangement, a distance disguised as responsibility. Now, he hadn't mentioned finances once. You don't get to come in and out, she warned. I won't. You don't get to disappoint him. His jaw tightened. I won't. You don't get to disappear again. He looked at her then. Really looked at her. I won't. There was something different in his tone this time. Not defense. Decision. Luca tugged lightly on Alexander's sleeve. Can I see your office? The request was small. Innocent. Alexander glanced at Sophia for permission. She nodded once. Luca walked forward confidently, peering at the skyline. You live here? Yes. It's high. It is. Do you like it? Alexander paused. I thought I did. The honesty surprised even him. Luca turned. Do you like it now? Alexander looked at Sophia briefly, then back at the boy. I think I like it more with company. Sophia felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But possibility. Saturday came faster than expected. Sophia half expected a cancellation. An emergency meeting. an unavoidable conflict. But at 8:52 a.m., a black SUV pulled into the small soccer field parking lot. Not flashy, no entourage, just one vehicle. Alexander stepped out alone. White polo shirt, dark jeans, sunglasses pushed back into his hair. He looked less like a king, more like a man trying to understand a new role. Other parents stared. Whispers traveled quickly. Power doesn't hide well. Lucas spotted him first. His face lit up instantly. Mom. He came. Alexander felt something in his chest tighten at that. Not pride. Something softer. Approval. The game wasn't impressive. Children running in uneven formations. Missed passes. Chaotic movement. But when Luka blocked a goal and glanced toward the sidelines, he was looking for one person. Alexander stood. Applauded. Not loudly, but deliberately. Present. Sophia watched carefully, searching for signs of impatience, disinterest, discomfort. She found none. After the game, Luka ran straight toward him. Did you see that? I did, Alexander said. You stayed in front of the net. I told you I play defense. Alexander crouched slightly. You're good at it. Luka grinned. That smile did more damage to Alexander's emotional defenses than any confrontation ever could. Later that afternoon, they sat at a small cafe. Neutral territory. Safe. I don't expect you to move into our lives overnight, Sophia said calmly. I won't. I don't expect perfection. Good. But I do expect consistency. You'll have it. He folded his hands on the table. I was afraid, he admitted quietly. Sophia blinked. Of what? Losing control. And now, I'm more afraid of losing this. His eyes flicked briefly toward Luka, who was stirring hot chocolate too enthusiastically. Sophia exhaled slowly. You hurt me, she said softly. I know. You made me carry that alone. I know. You don't get absolution just because you showed up. I'm not asking for it. The simplicity of that answer mattered. I walked away because I thought I was protecting everyone, he continued. You were protecting yourself. Yes. Silence lingered. Then he added quietly. I was wrong. The admission didn't erase 6 years, but it anchored the present. Weeks turned into routines. Soccer games, homework nights, shared dinners. Alexander adjusted his schedule, delegated more, left meetings early. For the first time in his life, power wasn't his priority. Presence was. One evening, Luka fell asleep on the couch, head resting against Alexander's chest. Sophia stood in the doorway watching. You didn't know how to do this, she said quietly. I still don't. But you're trying. Yes. He brushed a hand gently through Luka's hair. Careful. Protective. Intentional. Why now? Sophia asked softly. Why not stay detached? Alexander looked at her. Because when he asked if I was coming to his game, I realized I didn't want to be the man he explained away. The words settled between them. Heavy. Honest. Sophia stepped closer. Not fully closing the distance, but not as far away as before. You're not that man anymore, she said. I'm trying not to be. He stood carefully, carrying Luka toward the guest bedroom he had prepared weeks ago. Not a symbolic gesture, a permanent one. When he returned to the living room, the air felt different. Less guarded, more fragile. You walked away once, Sophia said quietly. I know. If you ever do it again. I won't. She studied him carefully. I believe you. That meant more than forgiveness. 6 years ago, he walked away because he wasn't ready to be a father. Now, he was. Not because he mastered fear, but because he accepted responsibility. The boy with his eyes didn't just stand before him. He reshaped him. Alexander Romano once believed power was built from distance. He was wrong. It was built from staying. And this time, he didn't walk away.